Okay, so I'm going to show you how I build a standard cash line. Now, I can't put everything in here right now because I'm at work and I don't have an hour to do that, but I'm going to show you the very basics of how I do it. So, we're just going to hit NFL, do full roster, I bet on 3 slates. Thursday to Monday, which is all the games, main Sunday, which is all the noon and all 3 o'clock games, and then 1 p.m. only, which is also noon only in Central Standard Time. So we're just going to pick a random one, slide the entry fee bar right here down to whatever I want it at, and then I like 50-50 cash bets. So I'm just going to pick one, and a new lineup. Okay. First thing is, just like every other sport, you want to pick your superstar, which is going to be your quarterback. Now, a couple stats they show you right here. It tells you who they're playing, it tells you their fantasy points projected per game, and the only thing this number comes from right here is their average for the rest of the season. So he has an average of 28 points. Now, that you might think he's just the best quarterback because of that, and because of that number, he's going to be the most expensive one. See, he's 83, 82, they just continually go down, and for the most part, so do their points. It just depends. Now, the part that depends, now if you click on Lamar Jackson, you look right here, this is his past 4 games. He versed Miami, which is the worst defense in the league. He versed Arizona, the worst defense in the league. And then he versed Kansas City, who, that number shouldn't be 30 in my opinion. They're not great. What I know about Kansas City is they're not great against the pass, but they have a great defensive line that puts a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. So their defensive backs might not be that great, but they didn't give him a lot of time in the pocket. So you see his points drop from the mid-30s to low 30s to mid or low 20s. And then against the Browns, who are pretty decent team, 26. So he's had a pretty easy pretty easy matchup the past 4 games. But now he's against a much better team than he's played against. So he's not projected to get that 28 points per game because he's got those 28-point average playing really shitty teams. Now he's facing better teams, so that's going to be dropping. So most expensive for a quarterback who's only done well against shittier teams is not a very good pick. Dak Prescott was not impressive last week at all, and now he's against an even harder team. So in Green Bay, if you look at it, versus Dak Prescott versus the Green Bay Packers, Green Bay has the 10th overall ranked defense. They are the 3rd best defense against the pass, which means Dak's probably not going to be passing a lot. If we get a lot of yardage, it's probably going to be from Zeke or Pollard because Green Bay's not that great against the rush. So Dak's probably not going to get a lot of points. So your 2 most expensive ones for this week aren't probably going to get a lot of points because they're against pretty solid matchups. Deshaun, same thing. He's against a really good pass rush, and he has not been performing overall that well. So again, he's not a very good pick. Carson Wentz, however, this is who I'm probably going to go with because he stays around 20 to 25 points, even against Atlanta, who is a very good pass defense team. Even against Green Bay, who's a very good pass defense team. This week, he's against New York Jets, who have a very shitty back line, but have a really good front line, which means they're going to shut down the running backs for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it seems like Carson Wentz, it would be smart for him to be passing a lot. So he's the 4th most expensive, so he's a pretty value pick, and I think he's going to score more points than the previous 3 that I mentioned. So I'm going to go with Carson Wentz. Now, I always pick my superstar running back second. Again, same concept here. These guys have scored a lot of points. Zeke has not. And the Dallas Cowboys have faced some pretty shitty teams this season so far. And now we're against the Packers. And now the Packers did just allow a ton of yardage to whoever they just played. I forgot who it was. The Eagles. So Zeke is a possibility normally, but his points this year have just been shit. So I'm not really keen on Zeke this year. Alvin Kamara just played the Cowboys and got 10 points. And next week he's against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are the best rush defense. So he's one of the most expensive ones with average points at best versus the best rush defense. So he's not going to be a good pick. Dalvin Cook. He's a definite possibility. He's against the team whose defense is not all that great. However, when they have a really shitty pass defense and a really shitty rush defense, it's kind of a toss-up because the team could either, the Vikings could either throw the ball a lot or run the ball a lot. So there's a chance that all their touchdowns come from receivers because their pass defense is pretty bad too. So he's just an option. Austin Eckler is killing it this year. See, these are numbers you want to see for a running back right here. Okay, so he gets pretty solid points no matter who he's up against. He's versus the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are the 30th ranked rush defense. So they suck against the rush. And a really good pass defense, which means the Chargers probably won't pass it all that much because the Broncos can block the pass. But the Chargers probably run it a lot because the Broncos cannot hold the rush. So Austin Eckler for 7,200, he's normally closer to $8,000, so that's a very good value and star play all in one. After I pick those two studs, I go to defense and tight ends because they are cheaper than running backs and receivers. So I want to go ahead and get those out of the way. That way I can come up here and look and see exactly how much money I've got left over to play with for my other stars. So I normally don't get the most expensive defense because it'll save you $2,000 going through a cheaper defense. But the fucking Patriots this year, man, are scoring 25, 37, 14 points, and for $5,500, that's almost stupid not to get. They got 25 and 37 points for $5,500. I could have saved that $2,000 and got another player, but then I would have gotten a defense that got 4 points and lost 20 points just for $2,000. It's not worth it. So, Patriots, in my opinion, and even against the Buffalo Bills, who almost fucking beat them, they got 25 points. And this week they're against the Redskins, arguably one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I'm going to stick with the Patriots. Tight ends next. Again, they never get as expensive as running backs or receivers, but a lot of them can put up some pretty decent points. Now, just like in baseball, you want to stack something with your quarterback. So Carson Wentz's 3 targets are Nelson Aguilar, Ashlon Jeffrey, and Zach Ertz. Ashlon Jeffrey is killing it. Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz would be a great combo. But for the price, he is quite pricey. And I know I'm already going to stack a receiver with Wentz, so I don't really need Ertz. Even though, versus the pass is shitty and versus the rush they're strong, so they should be passing a lot this game. I think I'm going to fade him and go down to a little cheaper one. Mark Andrews is doing well this year. God, I can't talk. Doing well this year. Look, 20-21 bad game against Kansas City. Because, like I said, Kansas City shuts down tight ends. And then 11 against the Browns, who also shut down a couple other teams. So again, he's average. He's against an average defense, but he's got a pretty high receiving touchdown rank. Oh, I don't think I've covered this in this video yet. So it tells you the receiving yards per game. It tells you the whole season stats or just per game. He gets 0.75 touchdowns per game, which is pretty high for a tight end. He's targeted 8 times per game, which is the 6th highest among all tight ends. So he's a pretty substantial player. So I'm just going to roll with him. Alright, now that I got those out of the way, I need a cheaper running back. That way I can still have I need a value running back is what they call it. It's a cheaper player who's performing quite well. So again, I just go through here. Okay, so the Bengals, the first thing I look at is not the team that the player's playing for, but the team they're going up against, and I look for a shitty team. The Bengals just got their shit rocked. So I'm going to truck up David Johnson. They are terrible against the rush. They're average against the pass. And there's sometimes notes here saying that David Johnson's expecting to go off this week, or that the Bengals gave up 5.2 yards per carry, little stuff like that. So, and then I go over here and look, he just played Seattle and Carolina, who have 2 of the better rush defenses, and he still scored 15 to 18 points. Now he's against the team that's got a shitty rush defense, so I'm going to roll with David Johnson for 6,800. Go ahead and pick out another mid-class running back. And this is literally perfect. They're against the Panthers. He scores pretty average and pretty decent points, and they've had some pretty decent matchups here. But now they're against the #1 pass-ranking defense So that lets you know that Jacksonville probably won't be throwing it much, especially since they have a backup quarterback. Backup quarterback versus the best pass rush defense. It's a bad combination for the long game. So they have the 24th worst rushing defense. So Leonard Fournette should get a lot of work in this game, and he's a pretty value pick right here. Okay. Now I need 3 receivers, and I've got about $6,500 to play with. Like I said, I definitely wanted to stack Carson Wentz, and he's got his boy Ashlon Jeffrey back. So it's the same matchup that Wentz had. Great against the rush, shitty against the pass, and he should go off. So we're gonna roll with him. Who else? Green Bay's guys do great. You got Devontae Adams up there. However, Dallas's defense, I don't think will win, but Dallas's defense, the Saints couldn't even score a touchdown against us, so I wouldn't bet on Green Bay this week. I mean, bet on them to win, but don't bet on their players to score a bunch of points. Okay, so let's see who's playing. Keenan Allen was very disappointing this past week, and at only 7.3 points. He normally gets, a pretty hefty amount, but he's against a really hard pass rush this week, so I'm going to fade Keenan Allen this week. Adam Thielen is always someone to check out. He's against the Giants, who've got some pretty bad pass defense. And you see all of his games this year, they've been against some really difficult teams, and he still held his own, only except against Chicago. But look for the 6-year receiver to bounce back in Week 5 against the Giants. So I'm going to go with Adam. And lastly, so we've only got $6,100 left, so we'll just scroll down to those receivers right here. Who are we looking at here? And you don't have to use all 61 because, like I said, just because this guy's more expensive than him, he might have had easier matchups. So, I mean, if you've got 61 left over, don't draft a $4,000 player. I mean, that extra 2,100 could really get you some value. But the difference between 61 and 5.8 or 5.7 is not that much. So don't pick based off money and projected points. Pick based off what all this stuff says and injuries and stuff like that. Okay, so Larry Fitzgerald actually just broke the record for the second most receiving of all time in the NFL. So he's good. 21, 12, 12, 7. The 12 and 7 are against some really solid teams. You got Seattle and Carolina. They're up against the Bengals, who again just got their shit ran over. So I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with Larry. Upcoming Week 5, he and the Cardinals receiving force will be facing a Bengals defense that is allowed a shade under 270 passing yards per game since the start of the last season. So the Bengals just get eaten up by the pass. So for 5,800 and him being their number 1 receiver, again, targets, he gets 9 per game, which is 11th in the league. He gets about half a touchdown a game. But again, that's against 2 really good teams. So I'm expecting him to do well. And that's basically how I start the line. Now, what I'll do from here is I'll grab this